Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be captivated. Today, we invite you into the shadowed world of Whispers of Betrayal, a narrative woven with threads of love, loss, and a chilling secret lurking beneath a veneer of domestic bliss. Before we delve into the heart of this enigma, we humbly ask you to hit that subscribe button, ensuring you won't miss a single twist. Now, without further ado, let us begin. The sprawling Thorne estate, perched like a sentinel atop the city's highest hill, should have been a sanctuary. Its glass walls, meant to invite the city's vibrant pulse inward, instead often reflected the lonely silence that had settled within its opulent confines since the passing of Evelyn, Alex Thorne's first wife, 3 long years ago. Alex, a man forged in the crucible of ambition and now softened by a quiet grief, found himself perpetually caught between the demands of his sprawling empire and the tender needs of his 8-year-old son. He was a titan in the boardroom, his decisions shaping global markets, yet at home he was simply Dad, a role he cherished but often felt ill-equipped for, especially in the wake of such profound loss. Evelyn's absence was a chasm in their lives, a constant, dull ache that no amount of wealth or success could ever truly fill. Then, 6 months ago, Serafina Vance had arrived, gliding into their lives like a perfectly orchestrated symphony. She was a vision of understated elegance, her movements fluid, her smile a warm, inviting arc that seemed to thaw the lingering chill in Alex's heart. Her laughter, a soft, melodious chime, gradually began to replace the echo of Evelyn's silence. Serafina was everything Alex believed he needed: intelligent, graceful, and seemingly devoted. She seamlessly transitioned into the roles of wife and stepmother, managing the household with an effortless grace that bordered on unnerving perfection. She remembered Leo's favorite bedtime stories, Alex's forgotten appointments, and always knew just the right words to soothe a troubled mind. Their sudden marriage, barely half a year after Evelyn's mysterious car accident, an accident still whispered about in hushed tones among the city's elite, its official report thin on details and thick with conjecture, felt to Alex like destiny, a second chance at happiness he hadn't dared to hope for. Yet, amidst this curated domestic harmony, a dissonant chord resonated within Leo. The boy, with eyes the color of old jade and a mind as sharp as a newly honed blade, possessed an almost preternatural intuition. He saw things others missed, felt undercurrents in the most placid waters. Serafina, despite her flawless veneer, sent a shiver down his young spine. Her smiles never quite reached her eyes, which, to Leo, held a depth that felt more like a vast, empty ocean than a welcoming pool. He watched her, a silent, watchful shadow, his tiny shoulders often tensing when she entered a room. He would cling to Alex, his small hand gripping his father's trousers, his gaze fixed on Serafina with an intensity that Alex, in his newfound contentment, often dismissed as childish shyness or a lingering attachment to his late mother. Alex, yearning for a complete family again, dismissed these subtle signs, attributing them to Leo's difficulty, a phase he hoped would pass. One unusually quiet Tuesday evening, the city lights twinkled like fallen stars beyond the immense glass panes of Alex's home office. Alex, buried deep in quarterly reports, the glow of his monitor illuminating the tired lines etched around his eyes, felt a gentle tug on his sleeve. Leo stood beside him, a small, somber figure in oversized pajamas, his face etched with a gravity beyond his years. The boy, uncharacteristically silent, climbed onto Alex's lap, his small body nestling against his father's chest, a trembling whisper escaping his lips. "Dad," he breathed, the word a fragile secret, "there's a camera in your office." Alex froze. The corporate spreadsheets blurred before his eyes, A cold dread, sharp as a winter wind, sliced through him. "A camera, son?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral, though his heart hammered against his ribs. "Where, buddy? Where did you see it?" Leo's slender finger, almost imperceptibly, pointed towards a corner of the ceiling. There, nestled amongst the intricate swirls of a decorative light fixture, a tiny, almost invisible object gleamed. It was barely larger than a ladybug, but a faint, rhythmic red light pulsed from its minuscule lens. A mini camera. The air in the room seemed to thicken, heavy with unspoken questions. Alex carefully, slowly, detached Leo from his lap. His hands trembled as he stood, his gaze fixed on the innocent, unwavering gaze of his son. Leo was no fantasist. His observations were always precise, his memory like a steel trap. The camera was real. The implications, chilling. Who would place such a device in his private sanctuary? And more unsettlingly, why? The elegant, smiling face of his wife, Serafina, flickered unbidden across his mind's eye. A perfectly polished facade, now fractured by a child's innocent whisper. The warmth he had felt for her, the hope for a future, began to curdle into a bitter suspicion. This tiny device, hidden in plain sight, was not just a breach of privacy. It was a declaration of war, a silent scream of betrayal in the heart of his own home. The fragile piece he had painstakingly built was about to shatter, revealing the treacherous currents beneath. The flickering red light of the hidden camera in his office had acted like a brutal defibrillator to Alex Thorne's quiescent heart. The jolt was sharp, instantaneous, tearing through the carefully constructed facade of domestic bliss he'd built around himself and Leo. He felt a sickening lurch in his stomach, a visceral nausea that had nothing to do with hunger and everything to do with the gnawing suspicion blooming in his gut. Serafina, his wife. The very thought felt like a sacrilege, yet it clung to him with the tenacity of a spider's web, impossibly delicate, yet stubbornly present. That night, sleep was a distant shore he couldn't reach. Every shadow in the opulent bedroom seemed to morph into Serafina's elegant, unreadable face. Her soft, even breathing beside him on the silk sheets, once a lullaby, now felt like a sinister hum. He lay awake, his mind a frantic, ceaseless storm, replaying every moment since Serafina had entered their lives. Her seemingly effortless charm, her uncanny ability to anticipate his needs, her unwavering patience with Leo. Had it all been an elaborate performance? The thought was a venomous bite, turning the honeyed memories of their courtship to bitter ash. How could he have been so blind, so desperate for solace that he'd invited a viper into his sanctuary? The betrayal, if true, was not merely of his heart, but of Leo's fragile sense of security, built on the ashes of his first mother's memory. That was an unforgivable sin. The next morning, the grand mansion, usually a vibrant symphony of household activity, felt like a silent, echoing tomb. Alex moved through it like a ghost. His customary morning routines, the precise pour of his coffee, the quick glance at global market news, now mechanical, devoid of focus. Serafina, descending the grand staircase in a silk robe that shimmered like moonlight, greeted him with her usual radiant smile. "Good morning, darling. Slept well?" Her voice, as smooth as polished marble, seemed to mock him. He met her gaze, forcing a smile that felt like a painful grimace. "Perfectly, my love. And you?" The lie tasted like sawdust. Her eyes, those seemingly deep but ultimately unreadable pools, held him for a fraction too long before she turned to fuss over Leo's breakfast. The mundane act of buttering toast for his son felt like a perilous tightrope walk over an abyss of uncertainty. Alex knew he couldn't confront her without proof. This wasn't a lover's spat. This was something far more sinister.
touching the very foundations of his family's safety.
He needed eyes and ears beyond his own, someone he could trust implicitly. His mind immediately went to Michael Hayes, a former Special Forces operative turned discreet private investigator, whose reputation for unflappable integrity and an almost supernatural ability to uncover secrets was legendary. He arranged a meeting under the guise of discussing a potential security upgrade for his sprawling business, a cover transparent enough to anyone within his inner circle, yet innocuous enough to avoid immediate suspicion. Their meeting took place in a discreet, soundproofed room at the top of one of Alex's corporate towers, the city sprawling beneath them like a silent conspiracy. Michael, a man of few words but sharp, discerning eyes, listened patiently as Alex, his voice hushed and heavy, laid bare his fears, starting with Leo's chilling whisper. He described the camera, the uneasy feeling, and the impossible weight of suspicion against his own wife. Michael, his expression unchanging, merely nodded, occasionally interjecting with a precise, probing question that cut through Alex's emotional turmoil to the core of the facts. The camera, Michael's voice was a low rumble. It was professionally installed, not an amateur job, someone with access and the right tools. He paused, his gaze unwavering, and a very specific motive. Alex's jaw tightened. Find me that motive, Michael. Find me everything. Michael's investigation began as a quiet ripple, then quickly became a torrent. The initial findings were startling. Serafina Vance had a past as meticulously erased as a chalk drawing in the rain. Her official records were sparse, almost too clean. Her family background, listed as deceased or estranged, felt like a convenient blank slate. More damning, Michael uncovered a significant debt load, nearly $2 million, that Serafina had incurred in the years leading up to meeting Alex. And then, abruptly, inexplicably, it was gone, paid off in full, just weeks before their first chance encounter at a charity gala, a gala Serafina had supposedly been hired to organize at the last minute. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a carefully constructed prelude. The more Michael delved, the clearer the picture became. He found a series of complex, untraceable transactions in Serafina's personal accounts, funneled through a labyrinth of shell companies based in various offshore tax havens. These weren't legitimate business dealings. They reeked of illicit activities, money laundered and then repurposed. Each discovery twisted the knife deeper into Alex's heart. The woman he had vowed to cherish, to share his life with, was a phantom, a construct built on lies. The true breakthrough came with Serafina's mobile phone. Alex, remembering Serafina's frequent clandestine bathroom calls, had subtly installed a sophisticated tracking and mirroring software. The data that poured in was a digital confession. Serafina was indeed in constant encrypted communication with a contact listed only as Shadow. The messages, a chilling chronicle of betrayal, detailed her meticulous surveillance of Alex's every move, his daily routines, his secure passwords, even casual conversations he had with Leo. She meticulously cataloged his assets, from the complex offshore holdings to the rare art collection adorning their walls. Her mission, clearly stated in the terse, coded exchanges, was to systematically dismantle his financial empire from within, to seize not just her wealth, but something far more valuable, something often referred to as the primary asset. The chilling revelation hammered home. Serafina wasn't just after his money. Her inquiries veered beyond typical financial information, hinting at something intangible, something his first wife, Evelyn, had possessed. The pieces began to click into place with terrifying precision. Michael then dropped the bomb that shadowed Alex's world into a million irreparable fragments. Serafina Vance, his beautiful, devoted wife, had a documented history with a highly organized criminal syndicate. This wasn't just a random con artist. This was a well-oiled machine, specializing in targeting high-net-worth individuals, luring them into emotionally manipulative relationships, and then stripping them bare. And this syndicate, Michael revealed, had a dark, unconfirmed connection to the mysterious death of Alex's first wife. The accident that had claimed Evelyn's life now screamed of a calculated, brutal murder. Alex remembered the police investigation into Evelyn's crash, swift, almost too swift, concluding with a perfunctory loss of control. He had been too steeped in grief to question it then, too broken to see the gaping holes in the official narrative. Now, those holes yawned like hungry mouths, ready to swallow him whole. Serafina, the camera, the organization, Evelyn. It was all connected, a sinister tapestry woven from threads of betrayal and murder. He had unknowingly welcomed his wife's killer's accomplice into his home, into his bed, into his son's life. The irony was a bitter, suffocating shroud. One late night, consumed by a desperate need for answers, Alex found himself pacing his study, a prisoner in his own home. He had been so consumed by grief, then by the intoxicating illusion of love, that he had overlooked the shadows that clung to Serafina like a second skin. Her almost too perfect composure, her unwavering cheerfulness even when he was at his lowest, her uncanny ability to avoid talking about her past beyond a few vague, rehearsed anecdotes, they all now screamed of a meticulously crafted lie. He clenched his fists, knuckles white, the polished wood of his desk feeling cold beneath his touch. How could he have allowed this? How could he have put Leo in such peril? The image of Leo's trusting eyes, those jade pools that mirrored Evelyn's, haunted him. Protecting his son was paramount, a sacred duty that now required him to become as cunning, as ruthless as the very people who sought to destroy him. His home, once a sanctuary, had become a battleground. And Serafina, the woman sleeping peacefully in their bed, was not his wife. She was the enemy within. The quiet house, once a symbol of peace, now hummed with the silent thrum of an escalating war. A war he was now forced to fight from the inside out. He had to act, and he had to do it before Serafina realized her carefully constructed facade was crumbling, before the whispers turned into screams. The air in the Thorne mansion, usually hushed with a quiet elegance, now hummed with an invisible current of tension, thick and suffocating like pre-storm humidity. Alex moved through the following days with a carefully constructed mask of normalcy, each interaction with Serafina a performance demanding every ounce of his self-control. Her smiles, once warm invitations, now felt like thinly veiled threats. Her touch, once comforting, now sent a shiver of revulsion down his spine. He saw her not as his wife, but as a meticulously crafted illusion, a dangerous predator camouflaged in silk and charm. The intimacy of their marriage, the shared laughter, the whispered secrets, all were now poisoned, tainted by the bitter taste of deceit. Serafina, for her part, seemed oblivious, or perhaps a master of deception herself. She continued to play the doting wife, showering Alex with attention, arranging intimate dinners, and even suggesting a romantic getaway. Each suggestion was a fresh stab to Alex's already wounded heart. He knew she was waiting, watching for any sign that her carefully laid plans were working, that his fortune was falling into her lap. But Alex was no longer a naive widower seeking solace. He was a man consumed by a cold fury, driven by the burning need to protect Leo and avenge Evelyn. He was a hunter now, setting his own trap,
baiting it with the illusion of his unsuspecting adoration. He decided the confrontation would happen on their anniversary, a cruel twist of fate, but a fitting stage for the unveiling of a grotesque truth. He prepared a lavish dinner, setting the grand dining table with crystal and candlelight, an ironic
Leo, sensing the unspoken tension that clung to his father like a second skin, opted for an early bedtime, his jade eyes flicking between Alex and Serafina with a cautious apprehension. It was a silent acknowledgement of the storm brewing beneath the veneer of their seemingly perfect life. The dinner began with forced pleasantries, Serafina's voice a lilting melody, Alex's a flat counterpoint. She spoke of future plans, of renovating the summer house, of children, words that twisted Alex's gut into knots. He let her spin her web of false promises, his gaze unwavering, his mind a steel trap. The moment came when she reached across the table to touch his hand, her fingers slender and cold like porcelain.
Darling,
She purred, her eyes shimmering in the candlelight.
this past year, it's been everything I dreamed of. A new beginning for us, for Leo, don't you think?
Alex's gaze flickered to the small, innocuous object he had placed strategically on the polished mahogany between them. The mini camera, barely larger than his thumb, now rested on a velvet coaster, its tiny lens reflecting the candlelight like a malevolent eye. He looked at Serafina, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper that cut through the romantic ambiance like a surgeon's scalpel.
A new beginning, Serafina. Or perhaps a carefully orchestrated end?
He gestured subtly to the camera. Care to explain
This, my love.
The transformation was chilling. The radiant smile vanished, replaced by a mask of frozen horror. Her eyes, those beautiful empty pools, widened, reflecting the tiny red gleam of the camera. The color drained from her face, leaving her ashen, almost skeletal in the candlelight. She snatched her hand back as if burned, her fingers trembling visibly.
Alex, I don't know what you're talking about.
Her voice, once so smooth, now cracked, a raw, exposed nerve.
Don't insult my intelligence, Serafina. I know. I know about the debts. I know about the offshore accounts. I know about Shadow. I know about your organization. And I know this little device has been broadcasting my life to them for months.
He leaned forward, his voice barely a murmur, yet vibrating with controlled rage. Tell me, Serafina, was any of it real? Or was I just another mark in your meticulously crafted game?
Serafina's carefully constructed composure finally crumbled. Tears welled in her eyes, though Alex wasn't sure if they were tears of fear or genuine regret. Alex, please, it's not what you think. I was forced. They had leverage. My family.
Her voice trailed off, a desperate, flimsy excuse.
Leverage? Alex scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. Leverage. You married me, Serafina. You played the loving wife, the caring stepmother to my son. Was that leverage too?
He paused, letting the silence hang heavy, pregnant with accusation. And Evelyn, my first wife, her accident, was that leverage too, Serafina? Were you forced to kill her? The question hit her like a physical blow. Her face went from ashen to a ghastly white. She recoiled, pushing her chair back with a screech that scraped across the polished floor.
No, Alex. I swear, I had nothing to do with her death. That wasn't my assignment. That was something else entirely. A different operation. They never told me the details, only that it involved a target, an asset.
She choked back a sob, or perhaps a gasp. I wasn't involved in that. Alex felt a surge of cold triumph. She was breaking. But the revelation of another operation, another target related to Evelyn, sent a fresh wave of dread through him. It was bigger than he imagined. Evelyn's death wasn't just a byproduct of this organization. It was a central piece of their macabre puzzle. Then tell me everything, Alex commanded, his voice sharp, devoid of mercy. Tell me about this organization. Tell me about Shadow. Tell me who is truly pulling your strings. Serafina opened her mouth to speak, but before she could utter another word, a sudden, chilling whoosh of air filled the dining room. A shadowy figure, large and imposing, materialized from the darkened hallway leading to the kitchen. He moved with the predatory grace of a panther, his face completely obscured by a dark, featureless mask. This was Shadow. His entrance was so sudden, so silent, it was as if he had simply solidified from the very air. Without a word, Shadow moved with terrifying efficiency. He snatched Serafina's phone from the table, crushing it with a single brutal squeeze of his gloved hand. The sound of plastic and metal shattering was sickeningly loud in the sudden silence. He then turned his cold, empty gaze on Alex, his presence radiating a palpable threat. His voice, when he finally spoke, was a low, guttural growl, distorted by some unseen device. You talk too much, Serafina, and you, Thorne, ask too many questions. He took a step towards Alex, his hand moving towards his belt. This information is above your pay grade, and now you've made things complicated. He paused, his gaze flicking towards the hall where Leo's room was. If you breathe a word of this, your boy pays the price. Alex's blood ran cold. The threat against Leo, explicit and chilling, ignited a primal, protective rage within him. Before he could react, Serafina, her face now contorted in a mixture of terror and desperation, suddenly lunged forward. "No, don't touch him!" she shrieked, her voice high-pitched and raw. She knew Shadow meant what he said. She knew the organization's ruthlessness. She had seen it firsthand. As Shadow moved to grab Serafina, a soft clatter echoed from the hallway. It was a small sound, almost swallowed by the sudden surge of adrenaline and fear, but it was enough. Leo. The boy, drawn by the commotion, had evidently crept out of his room and was now standing at the threshold of the dining room, a small porcelain figurine clutched in his hand, which had just slipped from his grasp and shattered on the marble floor. His jade eyes, wide with terror, were fixed on Shadow. Shadow's masked head snapped towards Leo. The predatory stillness in his posture shifted into a coiled, lethal spring. Well, well, the primary asset reveals himself. Before Shadow could make another move towards Leo, Alex reacted on instinct, a surge of adrenaline turning him into a blur of motion. He launched himself at Shadow, a roar tearing from his throat. He wasn't thinking of tactics or training. He was simply a father protecting his child. The force of his unexpected charge knocked Shadow off balance. A brief, brutal struggle ensued, a chaotic flurry of fists and grunts. Alex, fueled by paternal rage, fought with a ferocity he hadn't known he possessed. Shadow, though clearly more trained, was momentarily caught off guard by Alex's sheer desperation. In the wild, desperate tangle of bodies, something fell from Shadow's grasp. A small, old wooden box, weathered and dark, tumbled from his inner coat pocket and skittered across the polished floor, coming to rest near Alex's feet. Alex, amidst the chaos, caught a fleeting glimpse of it. His breath hitched. He had seen that box before, countless times, in old photographs, in Evelyn's study. It belonged to Evelyn, his first wife.
Shadow, regaining his footing, lashed out with a powerful kick, sending Alex stumbling backward, hitting the side of the dining table with a jarring thud. Before Shadow could follow up, Serafina, surprisingly, intervened. She threw herself between Shadow and Alex, a desperate, defiant act. "Run, Alex! Take Leo and run!" she screamed, her voice raw with terror, yet holding a note of genuine urgency. As Shadow moved to grab Serafina, a soft clatter echoed from the hallway. It was a small sound, almost swallowed by the sudden surge of adrenaline and fear. But it was enough. Leo. The boy, dry by the commotion, had evidently crept out of his room and was now standing at the threshold of the dining room, a small porcelain figurine clutched in his hand, which had—
Shadow, snarling, shoved Serafina aside with contempt. But the momentary distraction was all Alex needed. His eyes fixed on the wooden box. He lunged, ignoring the searing pain in his side, his fingers closing around the cold, smooth wood. As he gripped it, the box, designed with a hidden clasp, gave way. It wasn't empty. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a USB drive and a single yellowed letter. Shadow was upon him in an instant, his hand reaching for the box. But Alex, clutching the box and its precious contents like a lifeline, rolled away, his eyes darting towards the tapestry Serafina had indicated. He knew this house like the back of his hand, but this secret passage? It was a mystery, a final unexpected betrayal, or, perhaps, a last-ditch act of redemption from the woman who had brought so much chaos into his life. He had seconds. The air crackled with a silent, primal urgency. His wife, his home, his past, and his son's future all converged in this single explosive moment. He had to escape, with Leo and with the secrets held within that old wooden box. The tapestry, a heavy, ancient Flemish weave depicting a hunt scene, was not merely a decorative piece. It was a portal to survival. Alex, clutching the old wooden box and the bewildered Leo, plunged through the hidden passage Serafina had revealed. The thick fabric swung shut behind them, muffling Shadow's enraged snarls and the sounds of shattered crystal from the dining room. The air in the narrow, dust-choked passage was cold, metallic, a stark contrast to the luxurious warmth of the mansion they had just fled. Leo, his small hand gripping Alex's, trembled, but remarkably held his tears. His bravery, a quiet strength born of intuition and a deep trust in his father, steadied Alex's own racing heart. "Where are we going, Dad?" Leo's voice was a small, breathless whisper in the darkness. "Somewhere safe, son," Alex reassured him, his own voice raspy with adrenaline. "Just hold on tight." The passage was a labyrinth of hidden stairs and narrow corridors, a secret artery within the grand old house, likely built by a previous owner with a penchant for intrigue. It wound downwards, then sideways, finally opening into a small, disused cellar beneath the guest wing. From there, a rickety wooden door, easily mistaken for a storage closet, led out to a secluded path at the very edge of the estate, overgrown with wild honeysuckle. The escape was daring, born of pure instinct, but successful. They didn't stop. Alex, fueled by a potent cocktail of fear for Leo and a blazing fury for Evelyn, knew they were running from shadows that could materialize anywhere. Serafina, surprisingly, proved to be an unexpected ally. Her face, still pale and tear-streaked, held a desperate resolve. "They will see Evelyn," she gasped, stumbling slightly as they navigated the uneven terrain. "The airports, the docks, they have eyes everywhere. They're called the Syndicate of Whispers. No official name, no public face, just an influence. They operate in the dark." Alex glanced at her,
a flicker of something akin to reluctant respect mingling with his disgust. Her cooperation, born of self-preservation, was nonetheless valuable. "You said you weren't involved in Evelyn's death. Why should I believe you now?" Serafina stumbled to a halt under the sparse cover of a weeping willow, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Because I have nothing left to lose, Alex. They discard their pawns when they're compromised. Shadow would have killed me if he hadn't been distracted. I know them. I know their ruthlessness. I was tasked with acquiring you, not eliminating your past. They wanted something Evelyn possessed, something only you could lead them to after she was gone." Her eyes, for the first time, held a glimmer of genuine fear, a raw, exposed vulnerability. And now they want Leo. He saw too much. He's a liability, and to them, a potential asset because he's your son.
The words hit Alex like a physical blow, a potential asset. The idea that his innocent son was now entangled in this murderous web, that he was a target, ignited a firestorm of resolve within him. "Who is their leader?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Serafina hesitated, then whispered, "He's called the Wolf. No one knows his real name, his face. Only a few trusted high-ranking members. He operates through proxies, through people like Shadow. But there's a central data vault, a place where all their intelligence, all their secrets are stored. If you can find that, you can find him." She looked around, her eyes darting nervously. "And there's a safe house, an old abandoned factory on the city's outskirts. It's listed in the syndicate's emergency protocols. It's where low-level operatives go to lay low when things go wrong. They won't expect us there." Alex, his mind racing, nodded. This was their chance, a chance to disappear, to process, and to fight back. He hailed a discreet, unmarked taxi from a quiet suburban street, paying in cash and instructing the driver to take them to the abandoned industrial district on the far side of the city. Once inside, the grimy, desolate factory, its windows boarded up and its machinery long since stripped away, the silence was deafening, broken only by their ragged breathing. Alex found a relatively clean corner and sat Leo down, wrapping his own jacket around the shivering boy. Then, with trembling hands, he pulled out the old wooden box. It felt heavy, not just with its physical weight, but with the burden of unspoken truths. He gently lifted the USB drive. It was sleek, metallic, unremarkable. He plugged it into a compact, secure laptop he always carried in his emergency bag, a habit born of years of high-stakes business dealings. The screen flickered to life, revealing files encrypted with a level of security Alex recognized as Evelyn's signature. He felt a surge of pride and a pang of deep sorrow. Even in death, she was protecting him. He navigated the complex folders, his fingers flying across the keyboard. What he found sent a chilling realization through him. These weren't just data files. They were Evelyn's life's work. Years of groundbreaking research into a revolutionary biotechnology, a breakthrough in genetic sequencing that could revolutionize medicine, create unimaginable wealth, or, in the wrong hands, unleash an unimaginable catastrophe. The syndicate wanted this. Not just Alex's money, but Evelyn's legacy, her genius, warped and twisted for their own nefarious ends. His wife, his brilliant, gentle Evelyn, had been murdered not for money, but for knowledge. The implications were staggering, horrifying. Then he opened the yellowed letter. Evelyn's elegant handwriting, a familiar comfort, now felt like a desperate plea from beyond the grave. The first few lines were a loving farewell, a poignant message to him and Leo. But then the tone shifted, growing urgent,
fraught with fear. "My dearest Alex," the letter began, "if you are reading this, then my worst fears have come to pass. They are after my research. A shadow organization, deeply entrenched, with tentacles reaching into every corner of influence. They've been watching me for months. They want the Orion Protocol, my gene editing sequence. They believe it can be weaponized. I couldn't let that happen. I've sent a fail-safe copy of the data to Dr. Alex Thorne. Remember him? My old professor from Oxford. He's in hiding under a different name, but I've given you the coordinates and the secure passphrase in the encrypted file on this USB. He is the only one who can verify the data's authenticity and help you expose them. Be careful, Alex. They are everywhere. They are relentless. And they have a mole. Someone close to you. Someone you trust. I couldn't pinpoint who, but the leaks, they were too precise. It's someone who knows your inner circle, your habits. They will try to use your grief, your love for Leo, against you. Trust no one outside of Michael. Protect Leo. He is our light. And if anything happens to me, promise me you will never let them get their hands on Orion. It's too dangerous."
They will come for it, and they will stop at nothing. My love, my everything, remember our promise. Find justice and live for Leo, always. The letter ended abruptly, almost mid-sentence, a chilling testament to Evelyn's final moments. Alex felt a cold dread wash over him, a fresh wave of grief mixed with bone-deep fury. Evelyn had known. She had fought them, even in her last moments, providing him with the tools to fight back. A mole, someone close to you, someone you trust. The words echoed in his mind, a terrifying premonition. Could it be Richard Hayes, his business partner, a family friend? The suspicion, now turning inward towards his most trusted circle, felt like acid. Serafina, watching Alex's face, saw the dawning horror and rage. "The Orion Protocol," she murmured. "That's what they called it in their encrypted briefings. They said it was invaluable. They wanted it even before Evelyn's accident. They called her the source. It was never about your money, Alex. That was just a smokescreen, a way to get close, to control you once you had the data." Her eyes, surprisingly, held a flicker of something akin to shame, or perhaps genuine remorse. "I was originally supposed to befriend Evelyn, get close to her, gain her trust, then facilitate the data transfer. But then the plan changed. They said it was too risky, too slow. The source was too difficult to persuade." She shivered. That's when Shadow was brought in, for the final solution. Alex looked at her, his expression unreadable. He could see the fear in her eyes, the desperation of a pawn cast aside. "You were supposed to befriend her?" he repeated, the words tasting bitter. "And then what? Steal her research? Or lead her to her death?" Serafina flinched. I don't know the exact order, but I know they planned to get the data one way or another. And once I was in your life, the objective shifted. Marry you, secure your assets, and eventually gain access to anything Evelyn might have left behind. They suspected she had hidden something. She looked around the derelict factory, a stark contrast to her previous life of luxury. "They promised me a new life, a fresh start, clearing my debts. I was desperate, Alex, so very desperate." He saw the raw, exposed desperation in her eyes, the hollow weariness that even her meticulous makeup couldn't hide. She was a victim of circumstance, perhaps, but a willing one. Still, she had given him crucial information, a thread to follow. "So, the wolf wants Evelyn's research, and he killed her to get it," Alex stated, his voice flat. "And now he knows I have it, and Leo." "And now he wants Leo," Serafina confirmed, her voice barely a whisper. "He's the only direct heir to Evelyn's legacy. He's the weak link, the leverage.
They will use him to get what they want. A cold, hard resolve solidified in Alex's heart. Evelyn's sacrifice would not be in vain. Leo would not be another casualty. He had the research, the instructions, and now a reluctant informant. This was no longer just about survival. It was about justice. The Orion Protocol was a ticking time bomb, and he was holding the detonator. He looked at Leo, sleeping fitfully, unaware of the immense danger that now clung to his very existence. Alex vowed, with every fiber of his being, that he would protect his son, expose the wolf, and ensure Evelyn's legacy was used for good, not evil. Their escape was just the first breath in a long, brutal war. But with the secrets of the old wooden box, Alex now had a fighting chance. The derelict factory, once a symbol of industrial decay, became Alex Thorne's crucible. Days blurred into nights, fueled by stale coffee and an unyielding resolve. Leo, nestled on a makeshift bed of old tarps, clung to Alex like a limpet, his presence a constant, aching reminder of the stakes. Serafina, surprisingly, proved invaluable. Stripped of her polished veneer, she was a raw nerve of fear and desperation, but her knowledge of the syndicate was a weapon.
She drew intricate diagrams of their network, whispered names and safe houses, and provided crucial details about their operating procedures. Her fear of Shadow and the faceless wolf was genuine, a palpable thing that finally lent credence to her claims of being a pawn. "They have a central data vault," Serafina repeated, sketching on a dusty workbench. "It's not a physical place in the city. It's a highly encrypted server farm located deep within the financial district's underground infrastructure. Only the wolf and a few high-level operatives have direct access. It's their brain, their memory, all their targets, all their assets, their dark secrets. It's all there." The Orion Protocol, Evelyn's brilliant, dangerous legacy, hummed quietly on Alex's encrypted laptop. He'd managed to establish a secure, one-time contact with Dr. Alex Thorne, Evelyn's old professor. The brief, coded exchange confirmed Evelyn's fears. The protocol was real, powerful, and highly sought after. Dr. Thorne, now a reclusive expert in cybersecurity and bioethics, was alarmed by the implications of the syndicate possessing it. He promised to stand by Alex, to verify the data when the time came, but warned of the overwhelming power of such an organization. "They're everywhere, Alex." Dr. Thorne's voice, distorted but clear over the secure line, had echoed in the desolate factory. "Their tendrils reach into law enforcement, politics, even seemingly legitimate corporations. The wolf is a ghost, known only by reputation." The mole Evelyn had warned about gnawed at Alex. Someone close, someone he trusted. He ran through his inner circle, lawyers, board members, longtime friends. The name that kept resurfacing, a dark, unsettling whisper in his mind, was Richard Hayes. His business partner, his confidant, a man he'd known since their university days. Hayes was the epitome of old money, impeccable manners, and quiet ambition. But he also had a knack for knowing things he shouldn't, for being present at coincidental moments. The thought was a sickening twist. Hayes had been among the first to offer condolences after Evelyn's death, his sympathy as smooth and reassuring as a perfectly aged whiskey. Was it all a charade? Alex decided to set a trap, a public one, a place where the syndicate's shadowy machinations would be forced into the blinding light of public scrutiny. The upcoming annual charity gala, hosted by Alex's own foundation, was the perfect stage. It would be teeming with influential figures, media, and crucially, high-profile law enforcement officials discreetly invited by Michael Hayes, who was working tirelessly behind the scenes. The night of the gala arrived, a glittering tableau of wealth and power. The grand ballroom of the city's most prestigious hotel shimmered under crystal chandeliers. Alex, clad in impeccably tailored tuxedo, felt like an actor in a grim play.
Leah was safely tucked away with Michael Hayes at a secure location, a fact that gave Alex a sliver of peace. Serafina, her face pale but resolute, was also present, having agreed to play a dangerous role in Alex's plan. Her appearance was a risk, but her unique knowledge of the syndicate's internal communications would be crucial. Richard Hayes, immaculately dressed, approached Alex with his customary easy smile. A hand clapped warmly on Alex's shoulder. "Alex, my dear friend, you look well considering. A magnificent turnout as always." His eyes, however, held a predatory gleam that Alex now recognized. "Richard," Alex replied, his voice carefully neutral. "Thank you for coming. There's something important I wanted to discuss with you, away from the crowds, if you have a moment." He led Hayes to a discreet, soundproofed lounge off the main ballroom, ostensibly for a private business discussion. Hidden microphones, strategically placed by Michael's team, would capture every word. As they settled into plush armchairs, Alex cut straight to the chase.
Richard, I've been doing some digging into Evelyn's work, her Orion protocol. It seems immensely valuable and dangerous. Hayes's smile remained fixed, but a flicker of something dark crossed his eyes. Ah, Evelyn, a brilliant mind, truly. A tragedy, her passing. The protocol, you say? Rather esoteric for most. Why the sudden interest? Because it seems her accident wasn't an accident, Alex said, his voice dropping to a whisper that was nonetheless laced with steel. It was murder. And the people who wanted her research are the same people who sent Serafina to infiltrate my life, to take everything. He paused, letting his words hang heavy in the air. And they call their leader the Wolf. Do you know him, Richard? Hayes's composure finally cracked. His smile tightened into a grimace. The urbane facade began to peel away, revealing something far more sinister beneath. Alex, you're talking nonsense. Grief can make a man paranoid. Paranoid? Alex challenged, leaning forward. Or enlightened. I have the data, Richard. Evelyn's research. And I have Serafina. She's been singing like a canary about the syndicate of whispers, about their primary assets, about a mole, someone close to me. He let his gaze bore into Hayes. She told me you were one of the few who knew about the Orion protocol, even before Evelyn's death. She said you were very interested in its potential, particularly its more aggressive applications. A vein pulsed visibly in Hayes's temple. His eyes, usually cool and calculating, now burned with a cold, desperate rage. Serafina is a desperate, broken woman. She'll say anything to save herself. Perhaps, Alex conceded. But her stories align with the evidence I found. Evidence of your private communications, Richard. Evidence of your involvement with Shadow. And the fact that you seemed to always know my itinerary, my financial movements, even my deepest vulnerabilities after Evelyn died. It was too precise. Hayes's face contorted into a snarl, all pretense of friendship finally falling away. You fool. You think you can unravel years of carefully laid plans with a few whispers from a frightened woman and a child's imagination? His voice, now devoid of its usual smooth cadence, was rough, menacing. Evelyn was a liability. Her ethics, her morals, they stood in the way of true progress. The Orion Protocol isn't just about medicine, Alex. It's about control. Genetic manipulation on a scale you can't even comprehend. Imagine creating a bespoke virus, targeting specific DNA, or enhancing human capabilities beyond anything seen before. That is power, Alex. True power. He chuckled, a chilling sound devoid of mirth. And Evelyn was too naive to understand its true potential. She had to be removed. And you were simply a convenient stepping stone. A figure emerged silently from a shadowed corner of the lounge. It was Shadow, his masked face an ominous blank. Hayes had set his own trap, expecting Alex to come alone, to be easily silenced. But Alex had anticipated this. "Ah, Shadow," Hayes said. "It seems our friend here needs a more persuasive argument. Perhaps a demonstration of what happens to those who meddle in affairs beyond their comprehension." Just as Shadow took a menacing step towards Alex, a pre-arranged signal flared. The lights in the lounge flickered erratically, then plunged into near darkness, illuminated only by the faint glow of the city through the windows. This was Michael Hayes' cue. Simultaneously, a team of armed police officers, disguised as gala staff, burst into the lounge, their movements swift and decisive. "Police, freeze! You're under arrest." Hayes' face contorted in disbelief, then rage. "You betrayed me, Thorne. You set me up." "You betrayed yourself, Richard," Alex retorted, his voice ringing with newfound clarity. "And you betrayed Evelyn."
Shadow, with a primal roar, lunged at the nearest officer, a whirlwind of trained violence. He moved with frightening speed, but the officers, forewarned by Michael, were prepared. A brutal struggle ensued, chairs toppling, glass tables shattering. Hayes, seeing his escape route cut off, made a desperate dash for the back exit. But Michael Hayes, appearing from the shadows, blocked his path. "Going somewhere, Richard?" Michael's voice was calm, almost bored, as he expertly disarmed Hayes and cuffed him. "It's been a long time coming." Shadow was eventually subdued after a fierce fight, his movements finally restricted by multiple officers. The lounge was a chaotic scene, but the core objective was achieved. The wolf had been unmasked, his fangs finally blunted. In the aftermath, as the police led a furious Richard Hayes and a subdued Shadow away, Alex stood amidst the wreckage, a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration washing over him. Serafina, who had watched the entire scene with wide, disbelieving eyes, approached him cautiously. "It's over," she whispered, her voice raw. "He's the wolf. All this time." A tear traced a path down her cheek. Whether for herself, for Alex, or for the twisted life she had led, Alex couldn't discern. I'm so sorry, Alex, for everything." Alex looked at her, his expression softened by a flicker of understanding, but no forgiveness. "You played a part, Serafina, a willing one, but you also helped expose him. That counts for something." He knew her path forward would be difficult, filled with legal repercussions, but she had chosen to step into the light, however reluctantly. The following days were a whirlwind of media frenzy and legal proceedings. Richard Hayes' arrest, the unmasking of the syndicate of whispers, and the truth about Evelyn Thorne's murder sent shockwaves through the global elite. Dr. Alex Thorne publicly verified the Orion Protocol, ensuring it would be used for the betterment of humanity under strict ethical guidelines, stripped of any potential for weaponization. The world learned of Evelyn Thorne's genius and her sacrifice. Alex Thorne, no longer just a millionaire, but a man who had stared into the abyss of betrayal and emerged stronger, stood before the press. He spoke of Evelyn's legacy, of Leo's courage, and of the enduring power of truth. His eyes, once clouded by grief, now held a fierce, clear light. He had saved his son, honored his wife, and brought down a formidable enemy. A message to our listeners. And so concludes Whispers of Betrayal. This tale, born from a child's innocent whisper, reminds us that trust can be a double-edged sword, and that even in the most glittering of lives, shadows can lurk. The story of Alex and Leo Thorne teaches us the profound strength of parental love, the unwavering courage of truth, and the enduring power of justice. It's a testament to the fact that even when faced with the darkest betrayals, hope and integrity can prevail.
We learned that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are those closest to us, and that vigilance, combined with unwavering love, is our greatest shield. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more captivating narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world to us.